Well, it's back. I got the good old Corvette Disaster here. Um, it is here for a little checkup, a little more work. We're gonna clean up some things. There's still a little bit to do. I see, he's got a little bit of a leak right here. So he was concerned about a leak in the back of the car. So that's kind of what I'm looking at now. I see another drip right here. So I'll have to look at that. Another thing we're gonna deal with is the AC condenser. We're going to replace that because I wasn't able to do that last time. We didn't have it here. So we're going to take care of that. What else? Oh, there's an oil leak right here that he wants me to address. See if it's something that's an easy fix or not. He heard a noise in the header. So I had just a little bit of, just some cleaning up things to do on this car. He says otherwise it's been running pretty good. A little bit lean, but overall pretty good. That's right, I just noticed. He wants me to straighten out those exhaust tips. You can see how crooked those are. So I'm going to straighten those out for him as well. You know, I wonder, he complained about a rattle. You know what? It's probably that right there. There's a spring. Let's see if I can get you to see that. I don't know if you can see that. I don't think so. But there's a spring that's a little bit loose, got a little slack in it. Right there. So that's probably that rattle that he was complaining about, which is no big deal. And I'll get started on trying to figure out all these little issues. The condenser is not here yet. It's supposed to be here today, so hopefully that shows up. And when it does, I'll go ahead and do that. I'm just going to tidy up some of the little stuff first, and then we'll get into doing a little AC work so you guys can see what's involved in charging and replacing parts and air conditioning. I'm going to actually show you guys where this bolt is. This is a place that's pretty common to get something trapped. Let's see if I can switch displays. Okay, so there is a bolt caught in the header here. I'm going to show you where these things get caught. It's right in the collector. So you can see where all four of these pipes, they wide down, right? And then they go right into the collector area. Well, there's a couple of gaps that are up above here. And those gaps are areas where they'll trap something. For instance, if you look right in here, see right where my magnet is? I'm going to pull it out. So I can get it to come out. There we go. You see that? There's the bolt that was trapped inside that collector area. So that will cause a hell of an annoying rattle. So now that that's out, see ya. That should help with a little bit of the noise that he was hearing. Okay, there appears to be 3 oil leaks in the back. One of them is just a piddly little thing. It's kind of close to the top of the transmission. Looks like maybe a sensor or something. It's not enough to create a nasty drip coming off of here, but there's, oh, I should probably better wipe that. There. Don't want that to drip on me. There is both axle seals, where the seal goes into the casting or the differential. Both of those seals, they're leaking on the outside, not where they seal against the axle, but on the outside. So they're just constantly just dripping out just a little bit at a time. And the only thing we could do is replace the seals and look for scratches. There's a very good chance that somebody did a seal in this thing at some point, maybe those differentials when they were rebuilt or who knows. And when they use a seal puller, they might use one of those claw style ones. I have them. And they didn't pay attention to where the claw was up against. If it comes up against the actual housing or shell or whatever, the casting, it'll leave a huge gouge, and if you don't see it and put a little smear of RTV or something in it, it'll never seal. It'll just always leak. So those axle seals have to be pulled and replaced to properly address that leak. So I'll inform the guy and see what he wants to do with that. There, that exhaust is a little bit better now. About as close as I can get it, at least. Yeah, I mentioned the oil pan timing cover and rear cover. So there's a bunch of oil leak scenario going on in the bottom half of this motor. Whoever assembled the bottom half of the motor and put it in, that same guy, he never put sealer, I'd imagine, where all the little corners and stuff meet. So my guess is that's where it's actually leaking, but it's wet all the way around the oil pan, not much above it. I did see some oil remains or proof of a leak coming from this area on the valve cover, but it was coming from above the seal on the valve cover. So that tells me that this is dripping, which I had mentioned in a previous video, that doing the system this way without the proper catch can, that this would drip a little bit. Yeah, there's a little bit of oil there. So this is just leaking a little bit onto the valve cover, going around, and then dripping down from there. The only time that's really going to get oil on it is under load. So it's not very often that it's going to drip, but the fact that it does over time create a mess. So to properly solve that problem, this guy needs to invest in something like a Mighty Mouse catch can system, where it's got a really large -10 or -12 AN fitting catch can, and that would easily solve the problem of this thing having so much blow-by coming out of this filter and then going elsewhere. If you could actually maintain a vacuum on here, those would go down substantially, because it's hard for oil to get out when it's trying to pull air in. So I think that's what my recommend is going to be for this guy, is to get a better system on here, and hopes to reduce the other leaks for now, and then eliminate this leak, which really isn't a leak, it's more like just blow-by residual residue situation. So that's going to be my recommend for now on that. I'm not going to start on the condenser yet because I haven't got that far, but I do need to look into, he wanted me to address this fuel pressure gauge, see if I can find the wires. I'm going to go ahead and look for that first, and then we'll continue from there. Maybe go for the test drive after that. Okay, so I started looking into the sensor issue. I got a battery charger on the car. I checked for power and ground. I have neither power or ground to this sensor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in here and start looking at where the gauge comes from. And I walked in here and I saw something right away. Okay, so I'll aim it right there. See, right in the center of the screen, see that? That is a wire hanging. Now that comes from the gauge pod where this gauge is. And pull some of this apart and take a quick peek. I have this strange suspicion. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have this strange suspicion this wiring disaster here has something to do with it. So I'm going to pull this gauge pod off quick and look into it. Well, there it is. It's not even plugged in. There is nothing plugged into that gauge. So it's no way it's going to even think about firing up. So let's figure out where it's supposed to come from. It's probably, you know what, it's probably this connector right here. I almost spent money on it. Wow, what a mess. You got a light in here and what in the world? Wires upon wires that are just a mess of entanglement. Some kind of weird rat's nest we got going on here. The more I pull down, the worse this thing gets. It's going to be easier to rewire this mess than it is to try and fix it. Okay, so the person who wired this before, they had, you know, a light on one of the gauges, which is normal, whatever. But they had the wiring so that they had a power source coming from like an ignition switch area, and that wire came to a wire set here. Now I've taped all this up to make it look better, but came to a wire here, and then they had another wire coming from this power source going over to this wire, which goes to the lights. And this wire is only power with lights on. I'm not sure why they did that, what their purpose was, but you know, if you're gonna use this wire that's power with lights on, you use that to light up the lights on the instruments, the dash or the gauges, whatever. So that's what I'm gonna set it up as. I disconnected it from here. I'm gonna use this to power the gauges, which one of the gauges is right here, one of the power. You can see the ground, the power, and the lights. And I'm going to go ahead, the boost gauge must have been on the light. So the light I have to hook up to this, and this is for the boost gauge light, this is for the air-fuel ratio light, and then I have to hook this assembly up to this wire here. And I'm going to leave an extra wire hanging for add-on stuff later. I like to always leave an extra little pigtail hanging there, like I did right here before I knew what I have to hook to. So I'm going to go ahead and hook the rest of this up, and then we'll test it all out and make sure it works properly. Okay, so I took the time to rewire these. You can see the air, fuel, and boost pressure. Obviously boost pressure, there wasn't much wiring, it was only the lights that I had to worry about for wiring. Doesn't even light up, so the gauge, obviously the gauge bulb is out. I'll go ahead and fix that quick. But I tucked the wires in, I got them all hidden a little bit better. The ground is a lot better. That is annoying. There. The ground is hidden better. Oh, come on. Stay. The ground is sitting there, in there certainly much better. We have the wires hanging down here yet. I still have to tuck those into place and then put the cover on. But now at least all the wires are taped up and they look nice. So that's going to be a lot better. Plus, if you watch, which didn't previously work, or grab a light. Did not previously work, but now it actually functions properly. So got that guy, and that guy, which is supposed to be lit up but isn't, so I'll address that too. No dinging. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, push and hold that to make it not ding. Anyway. So I got those fixed. Now I'm going to go over to the AC condenser and get that accomplished after I look at that bulb. As you can see, I've started taking this apart. Totally forgot to put the camera on, but all I did is I pulled these little covers that support it off of here, and then I pulled the charge pipe off of here. That way that's out of my way. Now I'm going to take and unbolt the lines for this AC. Normally you would have to recover what's in the AC if you were to replace a part, but there's nothing in this thing because it wore a hole through, so there's no pressure whatsoever. So luckily all I have to do is unbolt it and then put the new one back in, pull a vacuum, and I'll show you how that process goes. So here's the old one. See all these weird lines and whatnot all over the place? Obviously that's from people trying to fit things and slide things in there. It just gets all mangled and beat up over time, but right here is where it actually wore through, and that's because of the charge pipe. One of the clamps that hooks onto that charge pipe sits right here like this. One of the clamps must have been spun around wrong and rubbed through it. I have it spun a different way now so it doesn't cause that issue. I also make sure I push the air-to-air cooler so it sits with a little bit of a gap between this guy and that pipe. That way it's not sitting there rubbing against it. Now if you look down this thing, you can see how it's got kind of a curve to it. That's actually helpful with the supercharged cars, and it does not hurt the unit at all. This one I'm going to go to an extreme just to show you guys what it's like, but basically you can take and you can go real lightly and tweak it. Well, I'm going to go a lot just to show you. So it's real easy to bend it, and as long as you don't, I mean obviously this is way too far, but as long as you don't go too far, you don't even remotely risk a chance of fracturing these tubes even. For instance, look at how they are now. They're actually still in plenty good shape. I'd be curious, since this thing's going in the scrap anyway, how far could a guy bend this thing? Wow! I am very impressed. it like folded the fins over, but none of the tubes are damaged from bending it that far. So that goes to show how flexible these single row units are. They can really take a hell of a lot of flex before they have any sort of problem. So just to give you guys an idea of how much maneuverability you can have with such a unit. So here's the new unit, and I am in fact going to bend this one as well, but obviously I'm not going to bend it near as much. I'm just going to give it a real slight little spot right at the top. I'm not going to do the bottom because that's all I need. This one could actually go in straight and not have an issue, but it would be really close, and I prefer not to have it close if I can help it. Make sure I got it sitting in there the right way. That way, yep. Oh, that's kind of funny. I'm going to bend it this way. It's actually got a slight curve this direction right now. So I'm going to actually go the opposite of what it had. In fact, to keep from doing too much, I'm going to bend it like this. Put it on the floor. Just give it a little bit. Just a little tweak. And then put my hand under that corner and give it a little bit more. So I didn't get much of it there. There, perfect. You can see I just got a little bit of a curve here. It is almost centered. It looks like it's just a little bit towards this side, but it doesn't matter. It'll be plenty enough to do what I want it to do. So I'll go ahead and slide this in and bolt it up. I got to take these caps off before I do that, but it'll fit right in there. Now it looks like both tabs on this thing are broken. I don't know if I might find some kind of weird clamp that I can build that uses a screw, or since there's nothing behind, there's no tank behind those tabs, I might just, but I want to drill a hole in this guy here and then use a screw similar to this but more of a plastic type screw thread and just put a screw in there, or maybe a bolt and a nut. I might do a bolt and a nut, but yeah, I'm gonna take care of that real quick here. Shouldn't take me too long. So now I drilled the hole in there, and I talked about the brackets being broken. Well, one was broken, the other one is also broken, so there's two broken. That's why I decided to do this, is because there's no other way to support it on this side. So this is a way of just supporting what wasn't previously supported. There it is, it's in. Alright, now I can put the lines in place. So here's the gauge set. I got it hooked up. High side, low side. There's low side. I have a vacuum pump here, and then I have it hooked up to a power source, and in fact I go one extra step and I put a fan here. So I have this fan running. It's you can't really hear it. You can hear the AC, but not the fan. I have it just on low, just enough air to just kind of try and keep the pump cool. You know, prolong the life of the pump. A little extra step I take, but I'm going to turn this pump on. It's going to pull a vacuum on the system, and I have to do that for 20 minutes to make sure I get all the moisture out of it. I don't want a single blip of moisture in there. Switch is right here. And you start to hear the change in the pump tone. It was rattling quite a bit. Now it's just kind of intermittently here and there. You're having little open spots, and it's slowly going to get more and more of those, and it'll run smoother. Once it's running smooth, that's basically a sign of being under full vacuum. So we'll go ahead and grab this keg here. I have a keg of good old 194 Freon. This stuff is actually recycled. I took it out of a vehicle. There's not much in there. Where is... I have another box here somewhere, and that's full of the brand new stuff. There it is. Got it under a bunch of crap. Go figure. Imagine that. So, grab this guy here. Ugh. So first I'm going to use whatever is left of that recycle. There's not much in there. It might have a couple ounces left in it. And then I'm going to go to the new keg and use up that. And I'll show you the process of hooking those kegs up and getting it back into the car. Okay, so I have the pump running. It's running smooth. It's been running for probably a half hour now. It's definitely been a while. It's definitely been long enough. So first thing I gotta do is shut the valves, make sure they're both shut. Then I gotta flip the pump off, disconnect the line, and now normally I would grab a scale and zero it out and all that stuff, but I don't know where I put my scale. I think I have it. I think I might have my scale up on a shelf. The good thing about being experienced with this kind of thing is I can take the bottles and I know approximately how much to put in, and then I can take the car outside and just watch the pressures and add as needed, and I'll get the correct amount in there, and I won't overfill it. I've been doing this long enough that I'm able to watch the pressures and know exactly where I need to put it. So now that I shut the pump off, I'm going to go grab my keg, this little guy right here. I'm going to put that little bit that's in there in here. I know that's not enough. It may even still have a little bit of a vacuum, or it'll just be at zero. More in there than I thought there was. Wow, a lot more in there than I thought there was. Well, good. It means I need less from the new keg. Didn't feel like there was that much in there. That was probably a solid half pound. The temperature in the garage right now is 72 degrees. Outside it's, let's see, let's take a look quick. It's quite warm, I know that much. It is 87, feels like 97, so it is definitely warm. It's very humid out. I don't know what the percent here, it doesn't matter. So I set this outside in the sun for just a little while. It is too warm. I mean, it was in the other side of the garage. It's probably 75 or 76 degrees. It's just a little warmer than garage temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and hook this guy up. I open this valve first on the keg. Then I open the valve on here and I control it with this. Now the one thing about not having a actual machine that's pushing it in, you really don't have to worry about overfilling it at this stage, as long as there's not too big of a temperature difference. If this thing was at 90 and the car was at 72, I would definitely be concerned about overfilling it. Okay, see I closed the valve there, and this gauge is dropping a little bit. Okay, it's 72 in here. I know this stuff is a little bit warmer, probably 76, and I'm reading 74 almost 75, just about 75. And when it comes to Freon, its pressure that it's at full is equal to that of ambient temperature. So the Freon is probably full right now, and I probably won't have to add any more. But I almost think I hear a leak. Might just be moving around. But I'm going to go ahead and get this car outside and running, and then we'll see if I need to add any more or not after I get it outside. We'll watch the gauges, watch the numbers, and base it off of the numbers. So right now you can see the pressure, 29, 210 and going up. That's actually a really good pressure. That's where I want it. So I don't need to add any more Freon. It's perfect. It's not going up and down. It's not cycling. You want between 25 and 35 for a stagnant pressure, and it's right at 30 right now. It will go up as it warms up without a fan on, but as soon as the fan kicks on, it'll start going back down again. So I just got done taking the car for a drive. The AC works phenomenal. Like, I had to turn it back up. It was down at 60 on this side. I think it's bi-directional right now. Let's see here. Oh wait, no, it was on just a single. How do I go back? I don't even know how to operate the dang thing. But whatever. Anyway, I'll figure that out later. So anyway, AC works phenomenal. Car drives pretty nice. The boost pressure gauge somehow got disconnected. I don't know if me pulling on the thing disconnected it somewhere behind the dash. I'll have to look into that. Fuel pressure gauge is working. Let's see here. So that's working good. AFR. It's working good. The car did get a little bit lean. I hooked my scanner up to it and it was watching some things like fuel trim. But it's not adding a whole lot, yet it's running a little bit lean, so I'm thinking it's more of a tune issue that needs to be addressed the more I look at it. So I'm thinking he's going to have the tune adjusted. But regardless, that's kind of the basis that I'm sitting at right now. This might also be tune affected too, so if he has it programmed for running a little bit lean, then it's not going to add fuel because it wants to be that lean. So it's a hard call to make. I'd imagine it has something to do with the tune. I think the tune's going to have to be looked at a little bit closer to verify where the actual problem is. Fuel pressure does not drop though, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted this gauge to work. I was watching where it was, and it gets up to that 55 under load, and it just stays there the whole time. I don't know where this tuner wanted it as far as his tune goes, but I'm going to have to ask the customer. These cars are supposed to be 58 for the fuel return system thing to work, as far as the dual tank. So it's got two tanks. One tank is set for the main pump to suck out of, and there's a draft line. So the return line goes to that draft side of the line, and it draws from the other side, and it has to go through the regulator to do so in order to draft it. Well, the regulator's at 58 psi, so you have to be above 58 to do the draw. And this car's not running at that, so I'm thinking that he might want to increase his fuel pressure and have a tune done again to get it properly tuned and make sure it's working right. The car works, it pulls good, drives pretty decent, so it's just a matter of, is it going to be tuned hot enough to melt the piston down, or is it tuned safe? I don't know. I think it's borderline. I think it needs to be definitely richened up a little bit just to be safe. Better safe than sorry. I'd rather run a richer tune with a little extra boost than a leaner tune with a little less boost. So I'm going to make that suggestion to him. And on that note, if you like this video about this car and the work going into it, like, share, subscribe. I'll continue to bring more content, whatever I can, whenever I can. I'm very busy, and as of lately I've been doing too much stuff that I cannot make videos on, but aside from that,